there? And you blinked. Now you're back.
Yeah, so did you.
Okay. All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Buy me some peanuts and cracker jack. I don't care if I never get back. Let me root for the home team. If they don't win, it's a shame. 'Cause it's 1, 2, 3 strikes, you're out at the old ball game.
Latest version of the Baseball Talk Radio Show with Rich and Gary. I'm Gary Mack.
And Rich Baxter over here.
And Rich, how are you? Got another action-packed show. I'm sure lots of stuff to talk about this week. Spring training in the air, you say. And lots of stuff going on in the world of baseball.
Yes, it is. And as you said, baseball back on the diamond in Florida and Arizona. Everybody's nice and warm down there. Take advantage of all the great weather that they're having, and take us out to the ball game.
And you'll be going out there pretty soon.
Yes. My first foray down into spring training while they're playing. I've been down around the complexes before in the off seasons, but yeah, it'll be my first time down there seeing games, trying to dig up some stories on baseball, maybe do a few interviews. It's going to be a little bit of a working vacation for me. Maybe I'll be able to deduct it on my taxes.
That certainly would be nice if you could do that, man. Wouldn't that be great? We're gonna have to do a GoFundMe next year and see if we can go down to our respective spring training camps next season.
Yeah, that would be awesome. We've been, talking about it for a long time, and yeah, that would be great. And looking forward to going down there. I'll be down for a special St. Patrick's Day game, and that's always a great time around baseball. And looking for my green items in advance. That was one tip I got from a guy that I do a Phillies Talk podcast with, and he's been down there for St. Patty's Day, and he told me, please get your things in advance down there. That they disappear, they're just not around.
Oh boy, and I would imagine the prices would be up there a little bit too. But you can probably go on your Phillies website, the official site, and go under the shop. And they've got, I know I just got an email from the Mets shop that all the whole line of St. Patrick's Day stuff is out. And what's funny is years ago, you couldn't find anything. You'd see them wearing the green jerseys and the green hats, and now they release everything, and now they've got T-shirts and sweatshirts and everything else, all with the St. Patrick's motif on it. I happen to have that I wear every year. I have a couple of Mets hats because they used to have a Cap Day giveaway, and a couple of times they gave away St. Patrick's green hats. So I'm not buying anything. I'm
You're good.
Said I just wear a green Met hat. I can change every year. I did buy one. I got it on clearance. I think I paid $10 for it one year.
Mm-hmm.
So I picked that baby up. But yeah, you should have a great time and really enjoy the nice weather too.
Yep, can't wait. I'll be bringing back some stories for our listeners here from spring training. And yeah, don't forget, if you want to share some with us, you can do that as well. Go over to our website at anchor.fm for the show here. You can give us a message if you want. Share some of your stories of spring training. I know we have a few listeners that over the years have got in touch with us, either via our podcast or our email address. But you can send us a message right from anchor.fm/baseball talk radio show. It's all one word. Or you can send us an email. Rich at baseballtalkradio.com or Gary at baseballtalkradio.com. That email will get right to us as well. And yeah, share some of your stories with us. We'd love to maybe recall some of them over an upcoming show.
Yeah, and Rich, you're going to be, of course, down in Florida. Maybe you can you be around the Clearwater, Sarasota area. Maybe you can take a ride over to Tampa Bay and find out what's going on there with this sister city thing. I don't know if you read about this, Rich, but Tampa Bay is trying to get a split season scenario. I don't really get it, but uh, it's going to be with Montreal if they can pull this off. And the Rays owner is backed by our friend Commissioner Rob Manfred and other MLB owners in floating an operating scenario where the Rays would play half of the season in Tampa Bay and the other half in Montreal, taking advantage of good weather in both locales and mitigating the need for covered ballparks, with the lease to Tropicana Field running through 2027 and St. Petersburg officials not budging from that commitment. The Rays are currently looking to implement the split season scenario coming 2028. What I don't get is, doesn't that mean that they need two ballparks then?
Yeah, I would imagine that would be the case. As you said, it almost seems like Tampa is going to make it easy for Montreal to sweep in there and take the whole franchise from them eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting scenario. An infusion of money might have something to do with it. I know Montreal really wants baseball back. Tampa wants to get some money back from their not failed franchise, but a franchise that is not in good shape, so to speak.
And they say this is the best way to keep Major League Baseball in that region, the Tampa Bay region. And I guess if you think of it that way, they could take advantage of, I guess, April and May, and maybe October. Well, if September is pretty nice too in Florida, of course, and Montreal. I don't know how bad it is in September, and then June, July, and August, I guess, play those months that are beautiful in Canada. I guess that's the whole idea, so they're not getting covered ballparks, so they're going to save a lot of money in construction costs on stadiums. But you have to have two stadiums now. Maybe two open field stadiums are cheaper than one or two dome stadiums. So I guess that's the whole thing behind it. And as you say, it brings baseball back to Montreal, and everybody seems to be in favor of it.
Yeah, it's going to be something if it happens. Another thing is, whose team really is it? Is there an affiliation with Florida? Is there an affiliation with Montreal? Is it going to be named the Tampa Bay Rays because they're playing half in Montreal? It gets a little
tangled
up.
What kind of uniforms are they going to wear? I mean, are they going to, or are they going to have two names? Are they going to be the Tampa Montreal Rays, or the Tampa Montreal Expos? I mean, it's an interesting concept, but it will require a buy-in from the group seeking to bring Major League Baseball in Montreal, and as we said, along with ballpark funding plans that will work from all parties involved. And they have to persuade the players union because they're not really adding a team, but they're adding a city. I mean, we used to hear about the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, but they played in Minneapolis and they were the Minnesota Twins. This would be unique. I mean, it would be, I don't know what they would call it. I don't even know if they've broached that, part of it yet. maybe they would call themselves the Tampa Bay Montreal Expos or the Tampa Bay or come up with a whole different name, the Tampa Bay Montreal Travelers or whatever. Who knows?
Yeah. So we'll have to keep our eye on that story. A bit of a strange story coming out of baseball there. Not that we haven't had some strange stories, but getting back to spring training a little bit, I can't wait. I kind of want to plan to get to Dunedin, Florida to check out the Blue Jays. They totally renovated their whole situation there in Florida, and kind of like to check out that spring training home as well. They apparently fixed their stadium from 5,500 to 8,500 fans, and did a total remake of that. I was looking online a little bit at that, but of course, when you get down there, time goes so fast that you may not get a chance to go there. But that's on my to-do list.
Yeah, it's a quick turnaround, and I know a lot of spring training homes with doing upkeeps and renovations. The Mets did some. Of course, the Houston and Washington just got that new facility a few years ago, so they're not really looking to do anything different. Some other places, and remember a few years ago there was a big boom down there, and yet the Rays can't get a stadium. This is what's amazing to me. The communities are big on building for the minor leagues, which may be in trouble now. It might be threatened, but the major league team Tampa Bay has such an issue trying to get there. That is a big difference between adding 3,000 seats and building a 45,000 seat stadium, of course. But it's kind of interesting what goes on in the area, and I guess they make more money on spring training.
Yeah, and as you said, spring training right across from where the Phillies train. Of course, the Yankees in Tampa as well. Severino, big news out of spring training so far, is going to be out for a year. Tommy John surgery. He's probably one of the biggest names to go down already in injury here for 2020.
Yeah, I would guess so, and that's going to put a big crimp in the Yankees pitching staff with Paxton out until they think May or possibly longer with back surgery, and backs are tricky. So, they're saying he could be back in May. He could also be out the whole year with a bad back like that. So, Yankees are not as deep as people were trying to tout them as one of the strongest rotations. I personally didn't see it with Garrett Cole. I think still Severino was unproven. He had a good year 2 years ago, but he missed a lot of time last year with shoulder problems and other injuries, and but they'll just bash their way, and they're in a very weak division with Baltimore and Toronto, and Boston's going to be very weakened this year, I think. So really their only competition seems to be Tampa in their division, so they should be able to take that division with no problem.
Yes, they should. Well, money they're spending out there, that should be an easy thing for them. The Astros kicked off their home spring training season, and who's to guess? Astro fans get signs stolen from them, not Astros players stealing signs, but some fans that smuggled some signs that they brought in with them to display their displeasure about what the Astros did, had those signs confiscated during the game from game day personnel. Apparently you can't bring those type of signs into games, and that's it. That's part of what the Astros are going to be facing probably everywhere they play except for home.
And also read that they were booed pretty lustfully in other on a road trip when they played outside their own stadium. So I don't know. They're going to get, like you said, it's going to be happening all year to them, and they're going to have to buck up and just deal with it. You know what, though, Rich? I was thinking they're in a lot of teams' heads right now, too, I think. If I were the Astros, I'd be banging on a garbage can during games just once in a while, you know? Just to let everybody start thinking, you know?
Bring back the old
Yeah.
sounds of the game.
I think they're in the Yankees' head. So if they get to play the Yankees in the playoffs, man, I'd have somebody on a garbage can banging that garbage can right before every pitch, just to get into their heads.
Yeah, Jose Altuve was booed, even got nicked by a pitch on the foot. Afterwards, the new Houston manager, Dusty Baker, said, he was hitting the foot. That ain't nothing. You know what I mean? That was the quote. So, Dusty Baker has a hard job there in Houston, and it'll be interesting to follow this all season.
Yeah, it certainly will be. And look, he took the job. He didn't have to take it.
Yeah, that's true. He offered his hat to many teams. I believe the Phillies he was in the running for, maybe the Mets, and everybody passed on him, but he was the right fit down in Houston.
Yeah, and he's gonna, have to deal with everything, including the media.
Yes, indeed. So we'll keep an eye on those stories for you here on the Baseball Talk Radio Show 2.0. It's our new edition of the show. We hope you hit your subscribe buttons, follow the show. If you like what you hear, you can also tune into us right at our baseballtalkradio.com website. It's the home for over 40 or 50 baseball talk radio shows 24 hours a day, 7 days a week there at baseballtalkradio.com.
There's tons of them, so just go and check them out, and I'm sure your favorite team is there.
Yes, indeed, including Gary's Mets and the Mets Musings. I have the Phillies Talk podcast there, the original, I might add. And
the original Phillies Talk.
Baseball and Barbecue, Jeff and Len, good friends of Gary there, and awesome show there. If you like barbecue and baseball, who doesn't?
That's right. We certainly like to eat.
Yes, indeed.
And Rich, Major League Baseball is always doing some kind of special stuff, and they're going to do a special thing again. Remember last year they did that? They built that temporary baseball stadium on the Air Force or the Army or the military base. Let's just call it that.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this year they're doing that again, but they're doing something a little bit different. They went to the site of the Field of Dreams where the movie was filmed. Now, they kept that diamond from the movie, and it's become actually, if you build it, they will come. People have been coming to that site, and it's become a very good tourist attraction, and lots of people go there every year. And what they're doing is they're going to play a game on that site. Now, then they were originally, I think they were looking at playing it on that diamond, but it's not big enough for us to build stands around. So they are going into the cornfields not far from that site. You can see the site from one site to the other, and they're actually building a small stadium, 8,000 seat place, and it's just beyond the actual Field of Dreams playing surface. And as I said, it's too small there. So they are outfitting it with an MLB quality playing field and the infrastructure to host an MLB regular season game. That game, I believe before it was televised on ESPN. It was a Sunday night game. I could be wrong. This year it's going to be televised on Fox. So now once the game is over, they are going to keep that field, and it will be under the operation of the company that owns and operates the entire Field of Dreams site, including the farmhouse and everything else. Now, and that company is hoping that they can use that for other future games, possibly other MLB games, as the years go by. And I think, it might be a great idea. Why don't, we've talked, I think years ago, we talked about MLB building their own stadium, and that's where they would have the All-Star games and whatnot, and maybe even the World Series to make it more balanced. Not that you would do that here, but if they're going to do one of these games every year, why not play it at the Field of Dreams site? Call it the Field of Dreams game,
Yeah. Yeah.
and every year play it at that site, and it'll bring tourism out there. It'll bring people there, and it'll publicize the game and playing in the grassroots, if you will, of Iowa. And I think it'd be a good idea to do it. But they're gonna have concerts there, and they're gonna use that the both fields and that field for baseball and softball events, that sort of thing. And they'll probably have some celebrity games there, and maybe even like baseball camps and stuff, which is a big business now. But it's going to be pretty cool to have it at that site.
Yeah, very cool indeed. And, one of the issues, quote unquote, that might erupt is, are there places to stay for people? Fans that'll have to travel to see this game. Are there hotels locally? I'm not quite sure where exactly it is in Iowa, but that infrastructure needs to be there too, and that always isn't there, and that gets tough to support, 8 or 10,000 fans that travel to that area.
Yeah. Well, it's like anything else. And again, I hate to be cliche, but if they build it, they will come. They'll build a couple of motels or hotels. Big hotels will start if they haven't already. If this place draws, I think I read somewhere, I could be wrong, but I think it was that they draw like 1 million people a year. So if that is indeed the case, I'm sure that there are hotels that have sprung up. The chains, the Holiday Inns, the Ramada Inns, whatever, Sheraton. I'm sure that some of those have sprung up, and I'm sure there's fast food places around. These things find a way of building themselves up in the area, and before you know it, there's a whole metropolis around it. But it's a good point. Local people there's a lot of old farmhouses there maybe, and they might be renting out rooms and renting out the whole place for to people, or turn the places into B&Bs, whatever, who knows. But I don't think they'll have a problem with that.
Yeah, it's nice movie. I like that Field of Dreams movie. Great stuff. So looking forward to seeing what comes of that out there in Dubuque County, Iowa. Field of Dreams there. We'll have to report on that as it happens as well.
Yes, sir.
So it's interesting how these little pop-up stadiums are happening for the MLB. Even over in Europe, it seems like they're really generating some interest, as you can see on Twitter and all, with all the fan clubs that have been springing up. And, they watch and try to watch anyway, because of the time differences, all the games and what they can over there in Europe. But, baseball is trying to expand the horizons.
Well, and I think they're going to London again this year. I'm not sure the teams that are going to be playing in that, but I mean, I'm fortunate enough that in my podcast I have a lot of Met fans, it seems, that are in England, and one listener in particular always voicemails me And in fact, I got a voicemail from him today. So it's pretty neat when you think about it, and it is growing. Hopefully, it does grow. It's growing in the Middle East as well. In Israel, it's becoming more involved. Australia is got their own professional leagues. I don't know if you happen to watch any of that over the winter. That's on. I don't know what the heck station, on one of those crazy stations, sports stations somewhere. But I was watching Adelaide versus Perth one night. I think it was, and pretty interesting to see. It was still baseball, and I think the announcing was more interesting because of the accents involved. But it's they're trying to go. I think they're trying to go more global. They're trying to get new areas of talent. For years it was the Dominican and all of that, and it looks like they're trying to expand. We've had a few Australian players. I think they're trying to expand into other areas of the globe and see, what superstars are there somewhere.
Yeah, and I did a little research. It looks like St. Louis Cardinals and the Chicago Cubs playing in this year's London Series
Okay.
2020. Going to happen in the middle of June over in London. So raise a pint to the Cubs and the Cardinals over there. I'm sure they will. Let's take a look at ticket information here real quick. Of course, there's travel packages as well. You can book through MLB.com. Over there at London Stadium. It's Saturday, June 13th and Sunday, June 14th. 2 games there. Let's see if we can make an attempt at purchase here of some tickets. And the cheapest ticket I've got coming up is in the bleachers in the high up area. 92 pounds a ticket. Wow. So the tickets are ranging anywhere from 32 pounds to 340 pounds. And that's, about $1.50, I believe, is the exchange rate just about. And 6 p.m. local time, the game will kick off on Saturday. So get your pounds and run over to England. Check it out.
So that would be like 1 o'clock here, I think.
Yeah.
It's 5-hour time difference. Interesting. Yeah. I think last time, I'm not sure whether they were. I guess they were around the same time, but I don't remember too much about it.
Yeah. Now the world is nervously watching that coronavirus as well as we're doing this podcast here. So far, that's impacting a lot of plans within these type events as well. So I'm sure a lot of Chicago and St. Louis area people that are thinking about traveling is probably monitoring that situation as well. Still a few months away, but something to definitely consider down the road for June.
Yeah, and that, as you said, it's kind of wreaking havoc on the sports schedule. As you know, I do a golf podcast as well, and a number of events. The LPGA, Ladies Professional Golf Association, canceled like 3 events that they were going to play in China, and even the I think it was the Japanese LPGA is having a tournament, and for the first time there'll be no spectators at all. So pretty interesting. What that small, who would ever think it was anything, but it's really wreaking havoc.
Yeah, so that could be a consideration as well for your travel plans. Going to see baseball, especially overseas right now. So check it out. Do your research beforehand. And Gary, we talked a little bit about this story before the show. Every team sort of has a mascot. The Mets have Mr. Met. And the Phillies, excuse me, of course, have the Phillie Phanatic, one of the more famous.
Yeah, one of the biggest mascots that there is Phillie Phanatic.
So he apparently the story goes that the Phanatic was thought of and creative somewhere in the late 1970s by a group out of the Philadelphia area. They sort of licensed the likeness of the Phanatic to the Phillies, and that sort of lasted for 35 years. And that time comes up in June of this year, and then that gives the original creators time to reclaim their um, original design, so to speak, and in a sense renegotiate with a team or a company that they have brought the idea to. And that, of course, happened with the Phillies, and the Phillies sort of been backpedaling from it. They don't want to pay several $1,000,000 that apparently has been requested. I'm not sure the number. So the whole case is in litigation. It's in court. And recently the Phillies announced a costume adjustment to the Phanatic, trying to show that they're improving it over time, I guess. Changed some colors around his eyes and gave him a different blue color tail, shortened his his big floppy feet, and
Different color socks.
yeah, the stirrups are gone. The baseball stirrups are gone. So, in a sense, they freshened up the uniform a little bit in an attempt to, I don't know, tell the court that they're improving upon it. But whatever the case, the Phanatic seems to be headed to court. Possibly, who knows what's going to come of this case? But it's an interesting law case involving sports mascots.
I mean, I don't know what the monies are involved here, but if it's like millions of dollars, but if it's over like a 40-year period or something, then you break it down and it's like 100,000 a year or something. Just pay it. I mean, it's the goodwill that they get from the Phillie Phanatic is so much worth it. It's a very popular mascot, not only in Philadelphia, but around baseball. And it's the guy who does it or people who do it are very talented. Pay the money. I mean, it's silly because if you lose, you're going to have to pay it anyway.
Yeah, or you could end up losing the mascot.
Or losing the mask. Yeah.
Many of us that are older remember the San Diego Chicken and how he was one of the first to burst onto the scene in a big way. And I did a little research on it because of the Phillie Phanatic case, and that was a marvelous story within itself. That's probably the subject of a whole podcast.
The Phillie Phanatic podcast, the Phillie Phanatic story.
Yeah, I mean, the guy that did the chicken, motif actually ended up buying the costume, the rights to using the chicken. Other teams wanted him in the 70s to come out, and Ted Turner was a big backer of his and, lured him from San Diego, wanted him to go to Atlanta. Just a wild story about that.
Yeah, he made a whole career. I think his name was Ted Giannoulis.
Yeah.
And made a whole career going touring baseball stadiums as to the Chicken, right? Or the San Diego Chicken.
The Chicken is the way I know it. Sometimes I heard him called the Super Chicken. San Diego Chicken is what he started out as. He was a baseball mascot for a radio station, and as you said, that gentleman ended up with the costume. He purchased the rights to it. Interesting story.
He exploded with that character, boy.
Yes, he did.
Very interesting with the mascots and stuff. So, what else we got working on there?
Well, I'm about
About done?
I'm about out of stories for this week.
Well, I got a story here on the WBC, the World Baseball Classic, and it's going to be coming up in 2021, Rich. And Marlins Park will play host to parts of all 3 rounds of the Classic, including the championship round. The announcement was made by MLB and the Marlins at a news conference on last Tuesday. The 5th Classic, which will be played from March 9th to 23rd of 2021, remember, will take place at the Taichung Intercontinental Baseball Stadium in Taichung, Taiwan, the Tokyo Dome in Tokyo, Japan, as well as the D-backs Chase Field in Phoenix and Marlins Park. The field's been expanded this time around to 20 teams. All 16 clubs that competed in the 2017 Classic, which was won by the U.S., will be joined by 4 others advancing from the 20 qualifiers that are scheduled to take place from March 13th to 25th in Tucson. The Classic will feature pools of 5 teams for round-robin play in the first round. The top 2 teams in each of the first 4 round pools will advance to the quarterfinals, while the top 2 teams from each quarterfinal pool will advance to the championship round. So, and then the rest in this article is just about the schedules. You can check that out when we get closer to 2021. But the World Baseball Classic is coming back again, and I was actually at one of those qualifying rounds in 2017. They played it in Brooklyn. I went to the game. I saw Team Israel versus Brazil, and it was pretty interesting. Sparse crowd. In the Cyclones, the stadium where the Brooklyn Cyclones play, whose name escapes me now, and it was pretty cool being in a minor league stadium because you're so close to begin with, and to see a lot of these guys. Team Israel had a lot of ex-major leaguers. Ike Davis was on that team, to name a few. Barry Larkin was the manager of the Brazil team, so he was there. Saw him. And it was just an interesting concept. It was a pretty good game as well, though you could tell it wasn't the level of play to Major League Baseball and even some minor league baseball. But it was fun. It was fun to be there, and it really had a good time. So that'll be coming up next year.
Sounds good. Yeah, I love that spirit of the game. And as you said, you do have to hunt around to see those games and hopefully live close to a venue where they're playing. But yeah, it sounds like a fun time. Quick little story here. I found some big name players are still without homes here. Spring training has started. Among them, Yasiel Puig without a home. Scooter Gennett is still looking. Addison Russell, ex of the Cubs there. 2019, he batted .237. That's probably the reason he's still looking for a team, but he's still available. Matt Harvey, the Dark Knight, still looking for a team here. Clay Buchholz, Russell Martin, Steve Pearce, the 2018 World Series MVP, who battled injuries last year, only played 29 games, somewhere around that, 37 years old. Not a big surprise there that he's having a problem getting on the team. Andrew Kashner, right-handed pitcher.
That's a little shocking.
Yeah, Mark Trumbo, some big names. Melky Cabrera, Aaron Sanchez, Ben Zobrist. So name a few big names there without a team so far as spring training underway.
I would not be surprised if Matt Harvey gets a minor league contract from the New York Yankees.
All right, you heard it here on the Baseball Talk Radio Show. Like I said, if you're listening to us on your favorite podcast platform, please hit that subscribe button. Go over to our podcast home at anchor.fm/baseball talk radio show. It's all one word. And there you can send us messages. You can support the program with $1 or $2 a month, as we've been talking about on the show. And stay tuned. We're still going back and forth about a video version of the show. We offered our listeners a chance to get a private video of the show if they would like to subscribe for $9.99 a month. And you just go right through the support tab on our Anchor site, and right out there you can pick either 99 cents a month, $4.99 a month, or $9.99 a month. So for that biggest amount, of course, we would give you personal access to our video version of the show, which also includes things that we don't talk about on the program. So little insider's view there and some other goodies that will bestow upon you as well. So we'd love to have you as a subscriber to the show. Help us out, pay some of the expenses it takes to do the show. Not too much advertising going on, and we hope you like it.
And Rich, one more breaking story, if you will. Larry Walker, who recently elected into the Hall of Fame, had his visit to Cooperstown. They go up usually the winter or spring right before the year they get inducted, and he has announced that on his plaque he will go into the Hall of Fame as, okay, it didn't work. I had a drum roll already planned, but it didn't work. He's going to go in as a Colorado Rocky. So that's
Holy cow!
There you go.
There you go. There you go. Colorado Rocky. Yeah. Larry Walker. What team comes to mind when you hear the name Larry Walker?
It's Montreal, but he did spend 10 years in Colorado, so I can see that.
Yeah, it's always probably a tough decision for a player to latch on to one team or another. I know some players don't prefer any team to go in when they go to the Hall. But yeah, Larry Walker, I guess, I do remember him as a Rocky for the most part. Played, as you said, Montreal, several different teams he has, but majority of his years seem to be split between Montreal and Colorado. So how can you sort of latch on to a team that even St. Louis, of course, but you don't want to choose a city that doesn't even have baseball in it anymore.
Well, and I believe I read he's going to be the first Colorado Rocky to go into the Hall of Fame. So that kind of, he played long enough there, and to get to have that distinction is something. There are already some Montreal Expos in. I think Gary Carter went in as an Expo. I can't think of who else, but to go in as the first Colorado Rocky, it's really quite an honor. And he actually played most of his career in Colorado. He played 10 years in Colorado, 6 in Montreal, though it seems longer than that, doesn't it? Because that's where he got his start. And 2 in St. Louis, so St. Louis you rule out right away. And like I said, I guess to be the first Colorado Rocky to go in, why did Montreal even get rid of him? That's why I don't understand.
Yeah, and of course, locally for me, a Hall of Fame story, of course, former MLB pitcher Roy Halladay, when he went into the Hall of Fame, he did not, his family did not declare a team they would represent, either the Blue Jays or the Phillies. I personally think he probably would have picked the Blue Jays had he been alive, but he went into the Hall without naming a team. So,
Yeah.
uh, even though he accomplished a whole lot with the Phillies, um, he does not have a designated team that he went in under with that. So, yeah, that's an option too for a player. So,
Yeah. There are a number of them that do that, and I guess in it especially makes sense in this day and age now that a guy, superstars never left years and years ago. Mickey Mantle never left the Yankees, and but then you get the other guys play with a number of different teams, and who did they go in with? Well, that was the case with Gary Carter. He played. I think the bulk of his career he played with the Montreal Expos, but he did win a world championship with the New York Mets and had a couple of good years. So was kind of a toss up there. Obviously, a Tom Seaver, played with Cincinnati and the White Sox, but he was a Met. He was always a Met, so he went in as a New York Met. But there are guys that play with a number of teams, especially in the free agent era, and it's sparse. Carlos Beltran is a guy that could go into the Hall of Fame, and he's got 4 years here and 5 years there and 6 years here, and if he goes in, it's going to be tough. He said he wanted to go in as a Met. We'll see after what happened this past offseason, if he does get in and whether he chooses still to be a Met. I don't know. But it is an interesting thing, and the players can have some input, but I think the Hall has the final decision.
Yes, indeed. So it'll be an interesting time there at the Hall of Fame, as it usually is every year for induction. That's further on down the road. We're have our eye on spring training, though, as the games just started this past week. A lot of that rust flaking off some of the players. And hopefully the injuries don't happen. Of course, we hate that when it happens. And we'll be talking about that, I'm sure, too. Unfortunately, that's part of the game here with baseball. And just so glad that we have a number of people that we know that went to spring training already in one town or another, either out west or down in Florida. So we hope everybody has a great time if they're going.
And you yourself are going, so we'll get a first-hand report.
Yes, indeed. I'll be happy to bring back some stories of spring training. Who knows, maybe even an interview or two.
That would be neat. Looking forward.
Yep, so without any further ado, we'll draw the curtain down on this edition of the Baseball Talk Radio Show. Join us each week that we do the show. Just hit subscribe on your favorite podcast listening tool, so to speak. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast. We're in a lot of places. Wherever you happen to see us, hit that subscribe button so you always get our latest show.
And you can't go wrong. You get all the news of Major League Baseball, and don't forget if you want to get all the news on the Phillies, go check out Rich's The Original Phillies Talk Show podcast on baseballpodcast.net. And if you want to find out about the Mets, please check out my show, Mets Musings, at metsmusings.com. And if you're a golfer, go check out my golf show, talkinggolfwithgary.com as well.
Oh, you can do that down at spring training.
There you go.
On.
Play golf, go to a ball game. Go to a ball game, play golf. There's even some courses, I think, around the Orlando area, if I'm not mistaken, that are lit up. You can play at night, so you can go check that out as well.
Very nice. Well, thanks for getting together and listening to this edition of the Baseball Talk Radio Show. We'll be talking to you real soon.
Bye-bye, everybody.